Hey, Lisa, I think we're supposed to be in.
There we go. Sorry, I had to get the recording going for you guys as well. So hi, everybody. We're going to be having little small groups here, but I'm Lisa Schneider, the Executive Director at Respite Care Association in Wisconsin. You guys want to do a quick introduction? Tracy?
Yeah, I'm Tracy Sinowitz with Alabama Lifespan Respite.
Alexis?
Alexis, State of North Dakota, Adults and Aging.
Wonderful. Sarah?
Hi there, Sarah Taves from Idaho, Idaho Family Caregiver Alliance.
Wonderful. And Charlotte? Oh, you're on mute. No.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Hear me.
Yep.
Okay, good. Hi, good morning, or it's afternoon. So, Charlotte with Arizona Caregiver Coalition.
Wonderful. Well, thanks to all of you. I have been provided with a little story that I'm going to read real quickly to you guys. And then there's some discussion that'll happen after that. So hopefully I can get through this without stumbling too much. So the story is what went wrong. As an administrative assistant at a large nonprofit on the East Coast, I did a little of everything: IT, graphic design, event planning, filing, cleaning, other duties as assigned, just generally holding the whole place together. While the organization itself was quite large, the team and I were pretty small. We only had a few grants, all from the state and directly related to specific programs that we ran. For the most part, the director and the program managers submitted the same grant proposals every few years, and that was it. But when the state launched a new grant, a big one, it would have allowed several departments within the organization, including ours, to fund much needed community programs. A group of us decided to write and submit the grant proposal together, hoping to score a big pot of money we could all use. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to learn the ins and outs of the grant process from people who had a ton of experience. The first meeting took almost 2 hours, and a good 20 minutes of that was spent agreeing on what font to use. The remaining time was spent divvying up all of the tasks needed to complete the proposal by the deadline. In the weeks that followed, we never met again, and no one did the tasks they were assigned. Oh, and no one even used the font we agreed on. At 4:56 p.m. on the day it was due, my boss walked over part of the grant to the state office after he discovered the person who signed up to deliver it had already left with her own department's part. I don't think we got the grant, but I do remember thinking, what went wrong? So for all of you to think about in regards to what constructive criticism and advice could you give to help avoid similar problems in the future? Like, what would you say about their approach to leadership? So there's like 6 areas, and you can just jump in on any of them. So the approach to their leadership, or conveying the vision, the partnerships, overcoming barriers, persuasion, and performance. So maybe we want to go around and each maybe say, like, what kind of constructive feedback would you have provided this group in regards to this big honking grant that they applied for that nobody followed through on? Anybody want to start? Otherwise, I will call on some names.
There are and there's so many problems with this scenario. It's hard to pick where to begin. I think, where to start with the, constructive points. But, I think always, and I do a lot of grant writing, so always knowing who's responsible ultimately, who is the ultimate responsible person, for submitting, for gathering the information, making your points of, your point people clear and their responsibilities clear, but you've got to have a leader in the situation, and everyone has to have a role. So establishing those from the get-go would be a good place to start.
Wonderful. I'm trying to take notes, and if you guys have notes that you can share at the end of this, we're going to be reporting out on it. So um, hopefully I can capture as much as I can. So Alexis, what are your thoughts? What kind of feedback would you provide?
I would start with giving some positive reinforcement to that admin assistant because it sounds like she is going above and beyond and has many skills in many different areas and is a valued member of the team. So I'd start with that. It sounds like no one to me was challenging the process in this case, that they were doing the status quo and kind of using the same submissions they had in previous years for the grant. So I would say one way to challenge the process and kind of maybe inspire a shared vision would be to meet as the team and do some brainstorming of how that should be implemented. And then kind of what Tracy alluded to, that one person should ultimately be responsible for that and submitting that. But I think it should be a team and a group effort of best ideas. And I'm a very visual person, so I prefer to read that case instead of I was trying to pay attention when you read it. But it sounds like no one they kind of dropped the ball and they didn't have that new innovative grant that should have been done. So I think meeting as a team and then designating one person to kind of run with that and to do the submission and involve everyone else along the way.
And when I read back, please feel free to chime in if I miss something because you guys are providing lots of great feedback. Sarah, what are your thoughts? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I was sorry to hear that they weren't meeting regularly. And I think that's the part of the fun of collaboration is regular meetings where you do have the opportunity to share what you've been working on, puts a little pressure that you have been working on something, and also creating a team cohesiveness. If they're going to be successful at a team project, they need to build that team sense of success and kind of ownership. So probably during that first meeting to spend some time building a team may have been a good investment for them to consider the next time they approach this, is do some team building, maybe do an assessment of personalities. Whatever kind of team building activities people enjoy that are not only just fun, but also help inform, oh yeah, I remember this person is the big idea person, or this person really loves the detail. So then that may help you kind of identify who takes leads on particular activities too. So team, I guess that's the overall sense I was.
Wonderful. And how about you, Charlotte?
I think everybody's pretty much summed it up. I have, again, it's too bad they weren't having regular meetings, but that was definitely something on my list, along with creating action plans for everyone involved. So everybody knew what they needed to do.
Yep. I found it interesting that when you guys were talking about, they just were complacent with doing the same old, and all of a sudden this big opportunity comes along and just no one rose up, to say, wow, this is a great opportunity for, our organization, especially this department. And, this one grant, I think it's funny that sometimes people spend tons of time for a very nominal amount for a grant, and then yet you could have that same team effort, and it might take the same amount of time even. Some of them are like that, and it's a big, larger amount that you can go after. And but I think all too often people have perceptions of what is involved with a large grant in regards to follow-up and reporting and progress reports and stuff like that. But so even kind of going through some of the pros and cons of how they would have benefited versus what they're losing out on in regards to not applying for some of the funds would have been a great exercise, and maybe build some ownership or team building kind of a deal. What do you think some of the barriers were in regards to this project moving forward?
Definitely communication, clearly defined roles, a plan. And yeah, like we, alluded to the lack of teamwork.
Agreed.
I'm guessing there's some internal history too that maybe could be facilitated as a conversation, like, who's the favored child in the organization, those dynamics that can really hamper change management if we're not thoughtful about having maybe difficult conversations, or at least setting the groundwork in terms of how this group is going to work, to what are our values and guiding principles for our work, particularly if it is a new venture for individuals that there may be some underlying, distrust or just lack of knowledge about what other organizations are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's probably no office without some internal politics going on. So we definitely, everybody kind of touched on the leadership and the conveying of the vision of, setting the tone in regards to having a plan, roles and responsibilities. It's funny because I think that the identifying the font was so key. And, I served on a board of directors, and instead of working on the phrasing, they spent almost an hour whether Greater Fox Valley region should be a capital G or a lowercase g. So I really related to that, because some people get hung up on such minutia, and then when it comes down to the bigger picture, the hard work and developing teams, it's that part, just kind of goes to the wayside. But boy, you want to know what that font is.
When I first started working in the nonprofit world as a fundraiser, it was always the big discussion was to benefit or benefiting, and how do you spell benefiting? And, and the benefit thing that was the constant conversation in meetings. It just drove me crazy. It's like, we have such bigger things to focus on.
Definitely. And I think that maybe even goes to some internal history that they don't focus on the meat of what they should be focusing on. They get hung up on something. And I don't want to say it becomes a power play, but they just don't move off of it. And they're, spending all this time sharing compelling arguments, I'm sure, on, benefited or benefiting, or the capital G, lowercase g, or what font to use. But yet not getting into the pros and cons of the grant application, and who's going to take the lead, and how often are we going to meet, all that key stuff. But
one recent experience has been this, having particularly in a new big venture, is bringing on a consultant, ramping up kind of the value among the players. If we're going to pool some money and bring on a consultant that's done this before, and so you have this external person to bounce ideas, to guide, to be kind of that neutral voice almost, or somebody that can call out lack of action easier than another colleague. Or but I think for internally, if leadership is going to have a team of folks go to work on this, I think they also need to step up and give them the resources that are needed. And sometimes that would look like a Tracy that's got all sorts of experience in fundraising and grant writing. Bring a Tracy on to help a team out.
yes, because
I've been really surprised at how beneficial that's been for some of our work.
Really, resources. Yeah, so you have the one person who is basically the jack of all trades, worrying about everything, and the whole team as a whole just wasn't focused on the big picture, where she clearly did her part, and had the energy and excitement and all that stuff behind it, and didn't seem like anybody else shared in that, or it wasn't developed or nurtured. Did they say how long of time that we're going to have in this? Because we've already had some great discussion.
That's 1 more minute.
Oh,
Yeah, Jill said
already.
5 more minutes about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
All right. It did not pop up on mine. So, because mine, I don't know why it says remaining 5 minutes, but So, all right. Well, is there anything else left to add? Otherwise, when I start doing the overview, unless somebody else wants to do the overview, but I know I kind of wrote it down to chime in if I didn't catch something just right.
Hey, I just want to give a kudos to Alexis. I thought that was really great.
Oh, bummer.